Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to Humanity Rising on this 18th day of January as we commence a new year, 2022. We want to turn today to the issue of health, regenerative health, which is probably the most timely subject that anyone can contemplate in an era of COVID, which has been with us now for nearly 2 years. It was in March 11th, actually, in 2020 that the World Health Organization called the pandemic. And as we embark on this new year, the pandemic is still very much with us. And so there's an opportunity 2 years in really to take stock about what's really happening to us. And I want to use as just an example to lead into a discussion. We'll be doing many sessions on this, actually, which we're planning. But the Israeli Health Ministry, day before yesterday, indicated that researchers had concluded that even with 4 shots, 2 vaccines and 2 boosters, they weren't able to protect against the Omicron variant. But today, the Ministry of Health said they were going to be giving those shots anyway. We're in a very strange situation, and I think many people around the world are beginning to wonder what's wrong with this picture, that the vaccines that were supposed to protect us from COVID have now not only not protected us from COVID, but if you look at the data around the world, the countries that have the highest vaccination rates also have the highest COVID rates. It's an extraordinary thing. In the United States, the variant now, we're being told, Omicron will probably get to everybody. And we're looking at a situation that we need to evaluate extremely deeply, is whether the current industrialized approach to healthcare is really what we need to empower us to deal as individuals and as communities and as a species with illness. If you just think back, whatever country you're in, I would dare say certainly in the United States and in Europe where I've been, there's almost no discussion by any health official about how you increase your natural immunity. There's virtually no discussion about alternative therapies. It's all about vaccines. And the vaccines are not proving to be particularly efficacious, either in preventing one from getting COVID, but in transmitting it, which is the data that's now emerging. If you want to go much deeper into this, which we won't do now because we need to commence our program, I would recommend Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s a new book, The Real Anthony Fauci, which is easily available in bookstores now and on Amazon, to get into a deeper analysis of our situation in relationship to COVID 2 years on. It's a very complicated picture. What we've been told isn't the reality. And so today we want to begin a series of programs on how we regenerate our natural capacities for renewal and healing and immunity. Before we jump into that complex but very empowering subject, I want us to just take a moment and pause in the midst of all the news that we take in day by day and center ourselves just for a moment in our bodies, attune ourselves to our hearts, and an awareness that our bodies and the beating of our heart is resonant with the beating electromagnetic pulse of the planet. And that it is in our heart of hearts, that communion, transformation, and healing take place the most naturally and the most powerfully. So just for a moment, listen to your heartbeat. Thank you, everyone. Deeply appreciate this moment every day on Humanity Rising of just communion with our own bodies, with each other, with the planet. Maybe the healthiest thing we do as we start the day. I want to now introduce Dr. Stephanie Mines, who's a neuroscientist and a neuropsychologist, who both from direct experience and from research has deeply looked into the phenomena of shock and trauma, how that impacts the body, and how using what she calls the Tara approach to regenerating and healing shock and trauma has developed a methodology, also written a number of books, one of which she just finished within the last couple of days, that really empowers people in the context of industrialized medicine to turn to their own bodies in a naturally regenerative way. So I want to welcome you back, Stephanie. Stephanie's been on Humanity Rising a number of times, convening various panels. And so she's familiar with most of you. But Stephanie, thank you for everything that you've done professionally and the panel that you're convening today on Humanity Rising on regenerative health, which is our natural birthright as human beings. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Jim. And feels like a homecoming to be here with you right now. I'm speaking to all of you from the unceded lands in the Pacific Northwest of the Multnomah and the Clackamas. It is truly an unveiling for me to present you with my vision of regenerative health for a climate changing world. This is the product really of my legacy as a mother, as a grandmother, as a woman, as an elder, as a scientist, an embryologist, and a poet, but I want to say something about this legacy that may surprise you, but it's woven into the vision of regenerative health. This is the legacy of my embryonic being. And this is what my book that I just finished 2 nights ago, Memoir of an Embryologist, relays, using all those voices that I just gave you a litany of. This vision actually was and is me remembering my future, but also our future of regenerative health. So I want to invite you into that vision. And it's a vision of hope. It's active, it's engaged, it's alive, vital, and educated, but it's regenerative hope for a climate changing world. So I won't have enough time in this presentation to give you all the details about the regenerative health paradigm. It is a systemic shift in how we conceptualize and deliver and experience health and healthcare. It was born, a twin, from my vision of climate change and consciousness. So it's interwoven with that program, that community, climate change and consciousness, which I invite you all to join. The regenerative health paradigm is health justice practiced from the ground up. So we hardly know the meaning of those 2 words, health and justice. It's understandable that we have lost our connection to both of those words, health and justice. The colonization of our minds and our bodies, the inflammation of our minds and our bodies has added to the obfuscation of our understanding, the burying of our understanding of those words, but that understanding is actually innate in us. And I say that not philosophically or just to deliver uplifting words. I say that regeneration, resilience, and buoyancy is innate in us from a physiological perspective. This is the part that I won't have time to fully unpack here, but it is woven into my programs. If you go to the TARA approach, you'll see them. But beyond that, it is woven into a vision that is manifesting now, and I want you to manifest it with me. I cannot manifest it by myself. And this is a vision in which there is a groundswell of regenerative health practice within our families and our communities. And this is entirely possible. So the impasse that we are experiencing now in health that Jim so beautifully laid out in the introduction here, this is a 2-part impasse at least. And I don't want to spend our precious time together pointing fingers and bad-mouthing Western medicine. I will have to say that they certainly are playing a destructive role in this impasse. The other component of the impasse is us, is our abdication of our responsibility for our own healthcare. And I say that not only as a healthcare professional myself, I say it as a mother. And I say it as someone who grew up severely afflicted by health needs that were not addressed either in my family or in the Western medical system. Ultimately, they were addressed by blessings that came to me in the form of people such as my collaborators here on this program who showed up in my life to bring me closer to my embryonic entelechy or destiny or unfolding soul purpose, which I am sharing with you right now. So this being who would not allow her daughter to be subjected to an invasive surgery at the age of 4 months, and who spent every waking moment researching other avenues so that my daughter could resolve a rather severe cranial anomaly with which she was born without having the back of her head cut open. I searched for the resources delivered by my own hands and the hands of everyone I could train to ignite her innate resilience and buoyancy within her cranial structures. And she succeeded. She, not us, we stimulated the organic reorganization of my daughter's intracranial organization in terms of the bone structure that had some struggles to find their natural alignment, but they found it. And it took approximately 3 months for that to happen. But within that 3 months, a diagnosis delivered by Western medicine was reversed. So that's a personal story that I share with you. But the other personal story, many stories that I tell in my book, Memoir of an Embryologist, and in all my books, is the story of human resilience, which I now thoroughly understand as an embryologist. So, subtitle of my forthcoming book, How I Discovered the Secret of Resilience. I am inviting you here, all of you, to join with me in drawing a line right now in this code red era, what Amitav Ghosh so appropriately calls the age of derangement. We are drawing a line, and that line is lettered with the words regenerative health for a climate changing world. I'm speaking to all of you, but I am most specifically speaking to those of you who have within their hearts of service a particular entelechy, a particular roiling of the blood when you witness the healthcare injustices that are everywhere. And I'm speaking here to the fact of the incredible affronts to marginalized populations who are suffering the most from this pandemic, which is an outgrowth of climate crisis. I'm speaking to those of you who are outraged as women of color are sacrificed when they are pregnant, when they are at risk, and they do not receive the same kind of care that white women receive. I am speaking to those of you who feel a calling to be a regenerative healthcare practitioner in your community. And yes, I want to create the opportunity for you to learn the specific skills that I've itemized as regenerative healthcare skills. And if Richard has the slide and can show it, that'll be great. But otherwise, let me just read you some of the criteria.
Is that the 12 principles, Stephanie?
Yes, thank you so much, Richard. That's awesome. Thank you. I so appreciate this team at Humanity Rising. What a service Humanity Rising provides for the world by making programs like this available to uplift us out of the age of derangement. So these are the characteristics of a regenerative healthcare practitioner. And everyone listening here is qualified to become a regenerative healthcare practitioner. Cultural sensitivity. We have to remember. All of this is about remembering. It's not bringing in some complicated methodology. It's awakening the ancient wisdom we carry in the cells of our bodies of regenerative health. Cultural sensitivity, awakening that within us. Empowerment-based healthcare is meant to empower the one in need. There is nothing more intimate than our healthcare needs. We come to healthcare professionals vulnerable, as I was, as the new mother of a 4-month-old baby who I was told was going to be cut open at the back of her head. I broke out immediately in sweat that didn't stop pouring out of my body until I found the resources that turned that around. We come to healthcare vulnerable and needy. The job of the healthcare provider is to empower the recipient. I empowered my daughter, thank God. But I did that to the amazement of the healthcare professionals who tried their best to disregard what had happened and refused to publish it. But I published the report on my own. Regenerative health is easily transmitted and easily replicated. That is the nature of the ancient wisdom that knows the mind-body health that is our birthright. Translate to all demographics, utterly inclusive. Tested, of course, tested by time and or clinical trials. I want to insert that the TARA approach, thank you, Jim, for mentioning my paradigm of the TARA approach, is clinically tested, is non-invasive. My daughter didn't need to have the back of her head cut open, the most invasive thing you could do to an infant. She didn't need to have that happen. Regenerative health is non-invasive and has a potent, undiluted self-care component. That means, and this is completely true of the TARA approach, the self-care applications are as effective, if not more effective, than what is administered by someone else. That's regenerative health. Evokes the natural healing response, which lives in everyone at all ages throughout the lifespan. And I can demonstrate that to you physiologically, is not traumatizing. How to deliver healthcare in a trauma-informed, non-traumatizing way, which happens organically when you understand the human nervous system And when you are culturally sensitive, empowerment-based, is repeatable by anyone. I envision cadres of regenerative health practitioners in every community who are educated and trained to transmit from what I've already started to build, that I need your help to continue to build, a cultural library of regenerative health resources. Regenerative health practitioners will deliver those to communities, to families, and then those interventions are repeatable by anyone, can be shared thoroughly, lovingly, and joyously with everyone. And that virtually instantaneously, and I know this from not only my direct experience, but from decades of research and service to humanity, and the story I just told you about my daughter that took 3 months, relief is provided from both acute and chronic conditions. So these are the characteristics of regenerative health. I want to honor Margaret Mead, who, in answer to a question about the beginning of civilization, what marks the beginning of civilization, responded by telling about the discovery of the healed femur bone. The healed femur bone indicated that someone had tended to another who was injured in their community. And therefore that femur bone was given the attention and the time that it needed to heal. The healing was innate in that femur bone, but it needed stimulation, it needed loving touch, it needed the presence of another to care for that person. Prior to the discovery of that healed femur bone, an injured person with a broken bone would be abandoned, would be left to die. Civilization begins with compassionate care. That is the underlying purpose, the beginning of civilization. That's what's on the other side of that line that I want to draw here and now. The line that gets us over this impasse that we contribute to. It's not about them, it's also about us. And we are the ones who can embody the buoyancy that is our birthright. So with that, I want to introduce a panel of 3 women who I would have as my healthcare team. If I was the one with the broken femur bone, I would want these 3 women by my side. They are a source of incredible regenerative health on the mind-body level for me. I just got the image of a waterfall as I was reflecting on them. Doctors Anita Sanchez, Spring Chung, and Darsha Narvaz. I'd like to begin. There are really no words to introduce them, and I don't like those stodgy introductions that go through a list of things that anybody can read. I don't mean to insult that process, but I would like to offer a heartwarming introduction to a woman who has stimulated in me a connection with my ancestors and a connection with the power of healing from the unthinkable. My sister, Dr. Anita Sanchez.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And indeed, I love being here. It does feel like family. And of course, everything you said, just I can feel my hair on my arm standing up and tingling, because it's exactly in alignment with myself, with my community, with my ancestral knowledge and my own healing, as well as supporting others. I am coming to you from Boulder, Colorado, the land of the first peoples of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Ute. I myself am Nahua from Mexico, but I also don't have the stories of the indigenous ancestry from the deserts of the US, as well as in my blood shows the ancestry from the Amazon. I want to just start with saying that what you spoke about, all those principles that you put in there for 12 Basic for the Health, these principles, in many ways, as I listened to you and read about them before, are very much in alignment with the principles that I grew up in being taught by my elders. So one of the things they would always say to us as they started sharing, because everything is a healing moment. We can either be good medicine or bad medicine. And my elders would always start with sharing about who we are and what we are. And they would always start at the beginning. And they would say that if we don't go back and start at the beginning, then our skin will be numb, our skin will be dumb. And that we will think that today, who we are, what we are individually, as a family, as the larger community of humanity, we think that comes out of a void. And it doesn't. It doesn't. So I honor those ancestors, and I honor your ancestors, that I can see the people on the screen. But those of you who are listening, that's so important, because built into us, not only physically, but at the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical level, is the wisdom and knowledge that we can tap into to do our healing of ourselves, be there for the healing of others. And when I say others, it's in this one hoop of life. That means all our relatives, both two-legged, winged, four-legged, the earth herself that provides for us. And the other thing that my elders, as they started, which was about these principles in health, even though they didn't call them that, they would go, why we are here as human beings is to remember that we're our wholeness. Whole human beings in this one hoop of life. And see, I don't put the hoop up high, it's flat, because no being is higher and no being is lower. We are all intimately interconnected. And that as a whole human being, we are here to use our gifts, to remember our interconnection with everyone, and that we do nothing alone, nothing. Now, we may get lonely, that's a human condition, but we have all our relatives to draw on. And that's what I want to leave you with. And that's what I hear when I hear Stephanie speak and talk about the Tara approach, and have witnessed part of that when we were together in ceremony and in teaching in Scotland several years ago. The other thing that the elders would share, and so I invite you, I'm going to make up the story, you're already doing this, but I want to make it explicit, that you are here because you feel the call. It's innate to you. You already know that wholeness, that remembering it. And it's not a one-time thing, it's an ongoing process. That's what called you here. So I invite you to continue to listen to us. And my dear sisters are about to follow in our conversation with the softest part of your ears and an expanding heart. Yes, we're not going to leave out anything. The spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, all of it is interconnected. And we need all of that. And so for my work, the principles that I draw on are the 16 principles of development and health that Indigenous people, through examining our oral history and our stories, were able to bring forward in the 80s and the 90s. And Stephanie, I'm just so delighted that, cultural sensitivity, non-invasive, that not traumatizing, and that it's repeatable, and that all of us have access So the justice is that there is this abundance, there's a sufficiency that we're part of this soup that all of us have access to. And so I have been given by my purpose, I'm not going to talk about all the credit cards I have, but what I really hear from my ancestors, from my family, that helped me with my own healing. Because on one hand, it was I'm grateful for my life and the communities that I'm part of, my family, from the elders from the very beginning who were teaching me about not only the seen, but the unseen, of the power to not fear death and not fear our own power, for life seeks life. And that I feel in regenerative health is what really is essential. So on one hand, I know all of us look like so together, doctorate, and you've traveled all over the world and doing all this work, and a carrier of the 4 sacred gifts, the eagle hoop prophecy, which was really a remembering of these gifts that we all have. But that wasn't always like that. I'm pulling out my hair for those who can't see. And I want you to understand that, because we're human beings. So it's not like this, I know, and I'm always going to be healed and whole. It's a process of remembering, but we're not doing it alone because we have each other. So my early years were 9 years of keeping a secret of sexual abuse. And then that would be enough for anyone to deal with. But then at age 13, my father was murdered, and it has to do with a lot of what we're dealing with now, again and again, until we heal that, which is the hatred, the fear across race. And my father was a dark-skinned Mexican and Native American person, and he was killed because of that. And in that process of innately wanting to go to this wholeness, what Stephanie has been talking about, which my elders have always shared and modeled, not just speaking, but modeled. In that process, of course, I was drawn to become whole and healed, to be a life-giving member in the soup of life. And so initially, I drew on nature because I'm part of nature. And that's part of the unhealthiness that exists, is because we're in this illusion that this is all separate. But you and I couldn't even be here without giving gratitude to the plant relations who take our carbon and give us the oxygen. So that is actually in every breath. We are already in this reciprocity, in this interconnectedness of community that is ethical and just and infinite in its giving. But there is a responsibility with that. With responsibility with what we receive is also that we give. And in that process, I know that Stephanie, in knowing more of her story and more of this whole process, is that that's what she's called to do. And so if you're feeling that call, then I just want to also invite you to look further into the Tara approach. And I also invite you right now in this moment to receive 4 gifts. Again, listening with your softest part of your ears and expanding heart. In the 90s, a prophecy, one of the young prophecies, because we have as Indigenous people all over the world prophecies that are hundreds of thousands of years old. And this prophecy said that we would be going into a time, a great winter, like no other, and that human beings have forgotten who we are and what we are, the wholeness, that we have the ability to create harmony and balance in ourselves with every being we touch. That's 2-legged and winged and everything. And so the gifts that 27 elders from different traditions came together, and they were in ceremony, using their medicine culturally appropriate, in their languages, in their dance, in their prayers, in their meditation, in the fire. Spirit came and told them 4 gifts for all humankind, so that we remember how to create this harmony and balance. And these 4 gifts I share with you, are remembering that these are yours to use in doing just what Stephanie and I are talking about, the regenerative kind of healing, so that we can be life-giving members to each other on the earth. And the first gift is the gift of the power to forgive the unforgivable. the gift of the power to forgive the unforgivable. Put that gift of the power to forgive the unforgivable into the ceremonial part of your heart. And you know where that is. And you're welcome to put your hands on your heart. And take a deep breath. Because you're already knowing what has been forgiven. You know how to do it. And what still needs to be forgiven. So that that energy can be used in the wholeness and health that you deserve. It all that came before and who will come after deserve all the lives you touch. The second gift that they put into the hoop for all of us is the gift of the power of healing. The gift of the power of healing, which we know is innate to all of us. And we have the ability to share with each other. So take the gift of the power of healing and put that in the ceremonial part of your heart. And take a breath. And with that breath and with already Stephanie talking, you were already aware of, what has been healed and what might need healing now at the spiritual, mental, emotional, physical level. Take another deep breath. And then the third gift that they gave to all of us, Spirit said, use this gift. And that is the gift of the power of unity. Part of what draws us right here at Ubiquity University, at Humanity Rising, because this is, again, nothing alone. There is no lone wolf. There is no lone speed. We are all intimately connected. And so take that gift of the power of unity and put that in the ceremonial part of your heart. And as you do that, you're remembering at every level all the beings that you're connected to. And with that gift of unity, it will pull you to remember all those that you are connected to that may have been forgotten. And that what we are asking, what we are calling forward, our ancestors and the earth herself, is this regenerative health that requires the unity of all of us. And then the fourth gift and final gift, which I will conclude with, is the gift of the power of hope, hope in action. Yes, take that gift of the power of hope, hope in action, visions of what is possible, a dreaming, put that in the ceremonial part of your heart. And as you do that, you can remember the dreams that need to be dreamt again to be remembered, or possibly new dreams that need to happen. Because the vision, the dreams are so critical, and we're a big part, all four of these gifts, in my own healing and my support of leaders from global corporations down into the communities, right into the Amazon itself. That this ability to vision, because pain pushes till vision pulls. And as I heard Stephanie's story, the vision of her baby, of her beautiful little baby being whole, that vision pulled her despite all facts to the contrary. Pulled her to move from the pain, to do the healing in a way that it was the most generative, a remembering of the sacredness of this baby. And so I'd want to end with these four gifts are yours. These are always been yours. And you're probably smiling as I am, as I learned of these back in the 90s and began weaving them into the modern science and wisdom so that people could call forward their own healing and wholeness. And if you wish to learn more about the four gifts, that goes like this, right on with the Tara approach, you can go to foursacredgifts.com, foursacredgifts.com, and you can learn more. And I didn't put this on full screen. And you can learn more about foursacredgifts.com and /course so that you can learn more about what is already your gifts. And I want to close just to say thank you. Thank you, Ubiquity University, Humanity Rising. Thank you to Stephanie and my other sisters here for listening, because fundamental to all of this requires us to listen. Listen to ourselves, listen to nature, listen to the wisdom keepers. And And I give gratitude to life. I give gratitude to my ancestors. And I want to end with giving gratitude and the remembering and using these gifts of the 7 generations to come, that I will be able, from the spirit world, know, as I know now, that I am a future ancestor who cares and loves for all life, all children, and the children of all species. Thank you for listening with the softest part of your ear and expanding heart.
Mil gracias, mi amor, mil gracias. I want to say 3 things very briefly, picking up right from my beloved sister. One of the ways that this impasse, this sacrifice of both health and justice is made possible is by the destruction of hope. We have been inflamed with a toxic repudiation of hope from the moment we are conceived. We are colonized to sacrifice our dreams. This program is my dream. It is the dream of my embryonic self. I'm so grateful to unveil it on a platform called Humanity Rising. I want to introduce the word refugia. We, the women here on this program, we are refugia. Refugia is a biological principle in the plant kingdom, whereby those plants that are threatened burrow underground and hide until it is safe for them to come out and be reborn. That is this time, that is on this line I am drawing, that puts us on the other side of the impasse. We are refugia. We women who are here before you, these 4 women who I'm proud to stand with, we are your mother trees. Mother trees communicating from the root system of the womb of the earth. And I want to introduce Mother Tree, Dr. Spring Chung, and I really don't have sufficient words to share the gift of Spring coming into my life, introducing me to her beautiful spirit, to the communities in China that she serves. She is a refugia, and she will tell you the specific, unique traits of the refugia that she is. I feel very much the beneficiary of my own vision of climate change and consciousness, because it brought me Anita and Spring. So with that, I will let my dear friend, Spring Chung, introduce her wisdom to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. I am Spring Chung. My Chinese name is Chun, which means springtime, because I was born in April. I right now I feel currents flowing through my body. Just to finish listening to Anita and Stephanie, and just being in presence with these healer women who have endured, and probably like all healers called forward at this time, we all endured a lot of personal trauma and loss and pain. And from that experience, we extracted our medicine and offered to the world. And I just feel I'm based in these medicines offered by Anita and Stephanie and Dasha are coming next to me. So I feel extremely grateful. These currents of great gratitude flowing through me. I'm a native Chinese. I was born in China, and I lived 27 years in the United States. I got to know Stephanie as I attended the Climate Change and Consciousness Conference as a presenter myself. The concept, what Stephanie talked about, the regenerative health paradigm, to me is like the music of my ancestors played through this woman that I got to know through climate change. It's the magic of the universe at this time. The reason I say why this is the music of my ancestors is because I was born and grew up in a time in China before industrialization. So folk medicine was what we grew up with. I remember all the way when I was a child, my mom would draw stuff from the kitchen to cook a soup if we were under the weather. And there are this hygiene of how to keep oneself well. And as a girl, like how do we care for ourselves during our monthly period? It was just part of infusing the ethyl. That's the medicinal knowledge was part of the household life. And both of my grandparents, my maternal and paternal parents, were both practicing Chinese medicine. One is a doctor, one works at a pharmacy. And it was during I witnessed the transition of the healthcare paradigm from that to the industrialized paradigm. And then as I grew a little older, I was very sick. I was sick all the time, going in and out of the hospital. And by then, the hospital has already become industrialized, and I received lots of doses of shots and the pills, and I just get sicker and sicker. I grew sicker and sicker as a child. And eventually, at age 12, my father looked at me as like, oh my God, can you survive? Like by this rate, you probably can only live to 30. So he took me to a Qigong healer. So, and those are the remaining, and they are like illegitimized. They are not, they have to like practice in corners away, hiding themselves away. And occasionally there will be a sweeping through and they all like put into jail. So it's brutal, the assault. So the healthcare system we know today, as we thought that was like like what Stephanie said, I really think that the current healthcare system as we know of was part of the blockage and it was part of the assault on our health. And I witnessed that because I saw how the establishment of the industrialized health system, they illegitimized and brutalized the folk medicine practitioner in order to establish themselves as the primary care source. So but anyway, in my case, I was taken to a Qigong healer and I learned how to do Qigong. And that was the first time I felt my body, like this currents running through my body. And I was just instantaneously, like it's as if like a spark being put in my body and I became alive. And I felt that like my whole body was so heavy with stuff. And so after I did the Qigong for 3 months, and in these 3 months, my constitution completely shifted and I became a very vital person. And I continued to practice Qigong on and off, but right now I've been continuing to practice Qigong for in my adult life. So however, ironically, my first career like all of us women who desire to present ourselves in the world, I also spend part of my life putting a doctor behind my name. My doctor is in molecular biology, and I worked for pharmaceutical company Merck. But I would say never in my heart, like truly believed it. I went to work for it more as a field study. Like I want to learn this medicine that has obliterated my ancestors' medicine. It's a gesture of respect and surrender consciously, not to surrender in a passive way, but surrender myself to the wisdom of others so that I can learn and absorb and integrate. And then after 6 years working for Merck, I quit that job and I retraced my footstep of my ancestors and learned acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And however, when I was practicing acupuncture, I felt this intense, I'd say, rage and grief of the health injustice of how our current healthcare, like what Jim said at the beginning, gave no attention, pay no attention and respect to alternative healthcare, and the economic, the social recognition inequality is so huge that I decided that I'm going to work on the social structure itself and how. So my current professional interest is in leadership development and organizational development. But interestingly, in my culture, in Chinese culture, in the tradition time, leaders, political and community leaders, and medical practitioners are trained in the same way. They were trained in the same way. Leaders are supposed to have medicine knowledge, and we treat the human body and our social body as self-organizing organism that following the same cosmic principle of how life organizes itself. And that's what I believe that the leaders of our new world should, that's the kind of training and the type of leader that I would like to see for my next generation of children, that the world that they live in, I would like them to have leaders that actually have medical knowledge as healers. So that's what I devote my professional interest in, and that's how I met Stephanie. And Stephanie's Tara approach is she learned it from Japanese women, Japanese native women, and that Tara approach, the origin of the Tara approach, share a deep origin with Chinese medicine. The concept of Qi actually unites both of these healing modalities. So on that level, I felt this like a deep kinship with Stephanie. And I did the Tara approach myself, and it was it's just like a nourishing dose of medicine for me personally, and also I think for all of us who care about healing and health, I want to say that health is not just about this body that defined by the outline of our skin. And of course, this is like the most dense part of our body. But what joined me so strongly with Stephanie is that we take health beyond what's this body. That's why we're interested in social justice, climate justice, health justice, because the social life that we participate in, the relations we build around us is also our body, is our subtler body, is our relational body. And that just takes a much requires as much health care for health and a holistic way of thinking as much as this dense body. And one thing I want to share here that connected back to climate change and climate consciousness is this. Probably a lot of you know Qigong. It's becoming a quite wide spread practice, healing practice, which shares similar origin with Tara. Qigong is Chinese. The name Qi means this universal life energy, and Gong is practice. So basically, you're cultivating universal life energy. And interestingly, in Chinese, the word climate also contains Qi. In Chinese word, climate means the pattern of Qi. So the pattern of universal life force. So in other words, the climate change crisis we're experiencing right now, from that perspective, can really be understood that we, the human society as it is right now, is becoming a disruptor of the universal Qi pattern. And that's what the climate, the nature is telling us, that we are becoming a disruptor. However, knowing that give us a power is that we have the power, we unconsciously disrupted, but consciously we can rebuild it, reconstruct it, and reintegrate it. So when we practice Qi, when we do Tara, when we evoke and awaken that universal life force in us, we reweave and reintegrate ourselves back into the web of universal life force. So climate change, to me, the power, the agent of change is just as much as in this body, in our intention, as in, of course, we need the large scale, the government, the United Nations to make decisions and the choices of our economy, of our infrastructure, of energy system. But just equally important, it also needs all of us to be responsible of how to maintain our own universal Qi pattern, our own inner climate, which is our health. So with that, I would like to share with you a simple Qigong practice. So I prefer to do this practice standing, but you can do it sitting too. So this Qigong practice integrates the three components of self that I just kind of alluded to. One is the most dense, the most physical aspect of ourself. Our physiology, the embryonic, the embryonic cell that Stephanie talked about. So I would like to invite you to envision that you are a tree, like the picture of tree that Stephanie showed in her slide. Let's take a deep breath, feeling ourselves in our body. And envision and just evoke an image of a tree that you like, or a tree that calls you right now. And envision that the root of the tree is extending underneath your feet, all the way down to the earth. And it goes into a point underneath our feet, somewhere on the earth where this tree used to be a seed. The splendor of this tree used to be held in this seed, kind of just like that embryo that Stephanie talked about. And then let's picture this splendid tree trunk that has grown out of the seed and all the way above the ground. That's our torso, all the way from our feet, our leg, our pelvis, our abdomen and chest and shoulder and head. And then I would like you to imagine this, this tree canopy extending above your head as branches and leaves, and all the way reaching up to the sky, the infinite, unformed energy part of ourselves. So now let's reach down with our fingertip and our intention to reach to that part of ourselves underneath the ground. And then from the ground, ask for the support of Mother Earth, that gradually raise your arm, just like the force of the tree is sending the tree branches upwards towards the sky. And I'm inviting your intention to fly through the tip of your fingertip to reach the infinite high, the infinite potential, the unformed part of you, the most, the part of you that holds the infinite potential. And from there, let's invite a fresh and healing energy that coming down and descend into your head, helped by your fingertip. And imagine that this flow coming through your head and into your torso, and flow and wash through your organs, and all the way flow into your legs and your knee, your shin, and back to your foot, and all the way back into the ground. And you're giving this energy back to the earth. And then come back, stand neutral. So thank you. With that gesture, we have reintegrated our earth, our human, and our sky self in one circle of Qigong movement. So with that, thank you for doing this with me together. Thank you for being an agent of reintegrating the wholeness of the universal life force. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Spring. Spring didn't mention her incredible work and her program, The Resonance Path. Maybe Spring, you could put your link in the chat. And in that regard, I want to say that this program is intended to stimulate the birth of another program, the Regenerative Health for a Climate Changing World. So the Tara approach, and I so appreciate the acknowledgement of it, is a fusion of energy wisdom that was imparted to me by Mary Ino Burmeister, who came to the US from Japan when she married Mr. Burmeister. And I was privileged to be her student for more than 2 decades. And I have, as a result, she really led me to becoming a neuroscientist, as I wanted to understand how this system really had changed my nervous system in a way that it was longing for. And of course, I invite everyone here to partake of the Tara approach. I'm starting a 9-month, purposefully designed 9-month practitioner certification program. And of course, I definitely want to encourage people to look at that, to look at the resonance path, to look at the 4 sacred gifts, the incredible wisdom. Each time Anita delivers that teaching, it's as if it was for the first time. And I have to add that as a characteristic of regenerative health. It is constantly renewing itself. No matter how many times I hear Anita, it's as if I'm hearing her for the first time. And I say that from the standpoint of my nervous system. And Darsha will share with you her evolved nest and her affiliation with Kindred, which is also a partner of climate change and consciousness. But regenerative health is not any one of those systems. It is all of them. That is what will be in the cultural library of regenerative health resources, which is a whole other topic. It's part of what I'm creating and that I want to create with you. This is emergent. This is a dream coming true, because we must know that our dreams, the dreams of our embryonic beings, embryonic in the sense of always renewed, always beginning. Those dreams are meant to manifest, so we must remember them. That is what will get us past this line, this healthcare impasse, is when we take responsibility for regenerative health. There are so many trees in our bodies. I love how spring has given us that through movement. One of the keys to resilience. The placenta formed by the embryo is a tree. The lungs, the respiratory system of the body is a tree. And we are linked through our roots to the communication network of the mother tree. I invited Darsha Narvas to be with us here because of her understanding of the beginning. Going back to what Anita said, we must return to the beginning. We must return to our embryonic selves to move past this line, past the impasse. And Darsha reconstitutes the nest and defines it. And I will let her share that with you, but that is why I invited her as one of the mother trees to be with us.
It's really an honor to be with you all. Humanity Rising, amazing, marvelous organization. And Stephanie's work is just such a blessing to the world. And Anita too, in spring. I'm so glad to have met you and learned about your work. Thank you for including me. I am going to tell you with PowerPoint, because there's a lot of ideas. I'm an integrator, a synthesizer, and tell you about my journey trying to figure out what's wrong with me, what happened. And it's sort of, it's related to, you know, what happened to all of us in effect. So let me share my screen here. I think you can see it. So I'm the founder of EvolvedNest.org and president of Kindred Media. We have lots and lots of information and tools and things at those websites. So really, this is going to be a teaser because I can't tell you everything, but there's podcasts and videos and stuff there. So what happened to us? We forgot our wellness-informed pathway. This is a transdisciplinary finding. And so we have to understand what our basic needs are, how to foster thriving by meeting those needs, how to develop heart-mindedness, which is the central way of being a human being for most societies that have ever existed. And that is also integrated with an earth-centered way of living, a know-how for getting along with the rest of nature, the other than humans. So first you have to know basic needs, and all these needs babies need pretty much. The animal needs, we sometimes forget and think that's all they need, warmth and protection and nourishment, but they also need affection and play and inclusion and extensive bonding with multiple adults and lots of support and welcoming and social enjoyment and such. And then as they grow up, they have their other needs there: intersubjectivity with multiple adults, immersion in community life, apprenticeship, and meaning making, and the ability then to understand how to expand the self and heal the self, which thankfully these approaches, Tara approach and others, are really assisting us in understanding. So in my laboratory at the University of Notre Dame, we study the evolved nest, and virtually all of these components are needed throughout life after birth and after breastfeeding. And we examine their effects on well-being, on social capacities, and on morality. And when these factors are not included in your life story, especially in those first few years, you have a tendency then to not reach your full human potential. So they include soothing perinatal experiences, on-request breastfeeding for several years, positive moving touch, a positive welcoming climate, you feel like you belong, you're cared about, self-directed social play, allo mothers, so it's not just mom that's providing the nest, it's a community of caregivers, responsive relationships, keeping babies calm as their biochemistry is really important for growing the right stuff in their brain and how their systems work and so on. Nature connection, fundamental. We are creatures of the earth after all, and we need that. We're not intended to be walled up all the time, for example. And then routine healing practices, because we all get out of balance, our relationships kind of get strained, and we need those kinds of rituals in our ancestral context. That's usually dancing and trancing and singing together. And so we have to incorporate those. So all this is what we talk about and write about and video about at evolvednest.org. And what happens when you receive the nest? You actually become a thriving individual and a thriving individual in relationship. And these are the characteristics we can find in those societies where humans the adults provide the nest to the young, and they feel nested throughout life. So that's a quiet mind, inner happiness, vitality, and being fully alive, autonomy, doing your own thing, but also always with a sense of relational commitment and communion, honesty, a sense of humor, outstanding memories, and ability to build habits at will, a know-how for getting along in that particular landscape, your attachment to that place, and a connection to spirit. And then relationship, you enjoy being with others and you enhance their well-being. You're attuned relationally, responsive, give empathy, listen unconditionally, are authentically helpful, provide unconditional love and forgiveness, are generous, egalitarian, and respect the ancestors and future generations and how you make decisions. And you feel responsible towards the web of life. So everything you do is having an impact. We know that we're bodies of energy, and our energetic realm is affected by how we think, feel, act. So we're responsible then to raise ourselves to be virtuous and aware of our impact. And when we meet basic needs, it leads to societal thriving. And this is the kind of society then that we see where the nest is provided. There's positive social engagement and lots of shared enjoyment of one another, a higher consciousness that's rooted in this communal way of thinking about the effects of your actions and thoughts and feelings on others. and then an emotionally engaged imagination, that you're not detached from your feelings, you're not detached from your heart, you're actually very much integrated with all of that, and very little time spent in social self-protection. And we can see in the United States, it's kind of the opposite. A lot of time spent in social self-protection. You don't feel safe because you didn't have the nestedness, and you don't have it perhaps now as an adult. And you don't have a lot of positive social engagement. Now, this is even before COVID and the isolation. What happens when you receive the nest, you develop our typical species normal mindsets of relational engagement with others, that full presence in the moment. And it's just part of who you are. You don't have to work at it. And you treat others with respect and reverence and resonance. And you have a small ego, your other enhancing. And these are developed then by those early, especially in early life, when the neurobiology of the brain is being established by what we experience. And then your imagination is oriented to the community, and you're sympathetic with others. And all this is co-constructed postnatally. And then finally, the fourth aspect is that part of this nested lifestyle, a wellness-informed lifestyle, is you develop a know-how for living a sustainable earth-centered life. And Aldo Leopold had an ideal statement here about this. You'd be oriented to this way of thinking. A thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biocommunity. It is wrong when it tends otherwise. And so our wellness-informed pathway meets the basic needs of young children and actually everybody through the evolved nest. This promotes thriving and healing. It develops heart-minded individuals and communities. And then you end up with a know-how for a deeply sustainable and compassionate lifestyle. This is kind of a general thing. Now, every community is uniquely different in how they do these things, but this is the general picture. Now, what we've got going on in the United States right now is we don't meet the basic needs of young children in particular, but really not anybody's throughout life. And so we're promoting ill-being. We have underdeveloped hearts, underdeveloped spirits. We're wounded. We take this primal woundedness with us. And we show a lack of know-how for getting along well and cooperatively and communally. And we lack know-how for the sustainable lifestyle. So what happens then is, in every situation, you go either to the left side or to the right side. When you've had a nested life and you're still being nested, you're going to mostly come to every situation with the left side. You feel safe, you're engaged, attuned, you're open. Now, and your stories, which is the top-down part, tell you that people are good and you are good and you feel good, and this is a wonderful place to be on the earth. But when your early experience undermines well-being, is unnested, you're going to be more likely to go to the right side in most situations. You won't feel safe. You'll feel threatened by this person who's bigger than you, who's smarter than you, whatever it is in that moment. Or you've been told that green people are scary, watch out. And so your ideas about life also then trigger this safety defense orientation, either the fight flight or the freeze faint. You hide from life and you brace against life. And so that's what we have a lot going on in societies that are nested. And the trauma-informed patterns really trauma-informed practices understand the patterns on the right side, but a wellness-informed practice understands the left side, which is the nested side as well. So we're all about prevention at the Evolved Nest and Kindred.org, healing and also prevention. So the transdisciplinary view of health that we have is that really the healthy ways of being are lived and learned from living them, right? Babyhood is a key portal to health. And so we all need to step in and honor babies, to love them, to help them feel appreciated, keep them calm. And then relationships play a critical role in fostering and maintaining health. We are social beings. Our brains are socially oriented when they're raised correctly or in the species typical manner. So we have a film, Breaking the Cycle film.org. You can see where we talk about the two cycles. This is the positive cycle of cooperative companionship, contrasts with the cycle of detached competitiveness. In this one, you provide that companionship care from conception. You develop a healthy psychosocial neurobiology. The adults turn out to are well and they're wise. Wow, right? And then those adults create communities that continue to attend to basic needs and are flourishing, essentially. And we can intervene at every point, depending on what your professional role is or your everyday personal role is. And I'm sorry, and in the middle is there's concern for the earth. So this is all with earth consciousness in mind. And so finally, I will stop here. Notice on the right, the book Neurobiology is where I talk about my journey, figuring out all this stuff. It's the interdisciplinary integration of neurobiology and how that affects culture. And then the other book is in press. It'll be out in April, where we're trying to show the way to how to restore the kinship worldview, which is the indigenous perspective of how to thrive, how to live well with the other than humans and live well on the earth. And there's more information, various information here. And I urge you to watch breakingthecyclefilm.org. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you, Darsha. All of us Mother Trees have written books that you can find on our sites. All of these books are absolutely worth reading. And I want to emphasize, and I really understand this as a principle of Humanity Rising and the Global Regeneration Corps, which I also want to reference here. Regenerative health encompasses all of these Mother Trees, all of these wisdom streams. We need them all. And there is a resonance that will come from you as an individual, not just to which of these wisdom streams speaks to you most specifically, but to how these wisdom streams can inform you as a regenerative health practitioner. That's what I am creating. So the Regenerative Health for a Climate Changing World is a program to instill the principles of regenerative health, and then the 4 sacred truths, the evolved nest, the resonance path, the resonance code that Spring has designed, which is her fusion of what she understands as the scientist she is and the ancient wisdom that she is steeped in. These fusions, these, as Darsha says, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary approaches to health are not in any way competitive with each other. We are not selling one over the other. We are offering them as a medicine basket, and I want to codify that and make it accessible. And there is an understanding that I have that in this code red acceleration, our ability to access healthcare in a systemic way is going to be, and already is in many places, cut off. And in some places, in the underserved parts of the world, such as Sierra Leone, through climate change and consciousness, we are engaged with youth in Sierra Leone, who only 23% of the population has electricity. One of our young friends lost his grandfather, who was on a ventilator, because the power went out. So that is what happened during Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. That is what happened there. People lost access. Diabetics could not get what they needed, neither the technology nor the pharmaceuticals. That is the accelerating condition. What is true in Puerto Rico, what is true in Sierra Leone, that's becoming true here. It happened already so many times. Cyclones, hurricanes, cutting people off. Katrina is an example of that. We can point the fingers over and over and over again. The other side of the line I am drawing is the side in which we become regenerative healthcare practitioners. That's what I'm encouraging here. So I'd like to open up for comments from the panel. I'm checking the time. We've already come to the end of our time, but I think it would be really helpful for everyone on this panel that I am so happy I assembled to say a few words in closure and your synthesis of this experience. And then I'll end, if you'll all bear with me and stay with us for another few minutes. I'll end with a somatic exercise, and then I'll turn it over to Jim. So I'm thinking we'll be here for another 15 minutes or so. How's that, Jim? Is that okay?
Perfectly okay.
Awesome. So
Wonderful panel.
let's return to Anita, please. And feel spacious.
Yes. Yes. No, my heart is just very full. My spirit feels very strong. And what is coming through to me is just a knowing and having listened to each of you that this hoop of life, this, that everywhere, as Black Elk said, in this circle of life, the center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere, the edge is nowhere. And that means that everyone matters. So everyone who's listening, watching, and all those you touch, everyone matters. And this hoop of life, this universe, this Mother Earth has given us everything we need. And I realize that's a big shift in mind, that we're not enough, there's not enough, whatever it is, but that it's all here. And every one of you, and bringing and listening and being fearless, being strong, being loving, heart-centered, bringing the gifts forward. I just feel right now like I looking over at my altar and I see the sweetgrass. And I know that we are all going to thrive. We are thriving. It already exists. We just need to keep expanding it. And how it happens is in part through a braided way. And thank you for giving me more knowledge and sharing your wisdom, more inspiration, and knowing that each and every one of us is and can be a life-giving force in this one hoop of life. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Anita. I always feel I'm sitting at your feet, just soaking up. I feel like a child when you speak. Soaking up what flows through you. That is health, my friends. That is health, to feel like a child at the feet of a mother tree. That's regeneration. Yeah. I have so much that I want to share, and I'm going to curtail myself and turn to my beloved spring to spring forth.
All right. At this moment, I'm reminded a healer that I studied with. He said something like, in the indigenous tradition, health is not the absence of disease, but it's the ability to move through wellness and disease fluidly and consciously. I at the onset of actually at the beginning of 2020, I think I was very ill, and I think I didn't get to go to hospital. All my symptoms matched with COVID, but I'm very grateful of that experience because that experience of moving through that disease period taught me a lot about myself and how I be with my body. So I wish that we can learn that what we call disease can sometimes be also our partner and alliance. And I truly believe that's one of the wisdom of health, is to listen to all that comes in our way.
Thank you so much, Spring. This is a component, really, of a true understanding of regenerative health. And, you know, I want to reference what I've learned as an embryologist, studying the incredible beauty and power of our embryonic selves that moves through severe obstacle to manifest from within. The embryo fuels itself. It is remarkable the way in which the embryo creates itself. We make ourselves, cell by cell, we make ourselves. That's Rumi. This has been known, and we are reclaiming this. So when there's an obstacle like COVID, like whatever obstacle we encounter, we move with it, through it,
Right.
embryonically. That's regenerative. And that is one of the cores of regenerative health that I long to teach. Thank you, Spring. Darsha.
Yes, I just want to emphasize that we sort of have slipped in our baseline understanding, baselines across the board, you know, of how to raise children, what we expect of children. We expect them to be aggressive and uncooperative and selfish. No. And then adults too, right? They're kind of not very well. And then the culture, we think this is normal. This is the collateral damage of progress. You know, it can't be any other way. It's wrong. That's just a few hundred years of, slipping into this really competitive detachment and the breaking of connection, essentially breaking of connection from almost day one, or even in the womb, right? The baby is isolated or distressed. And so we have to get back to understanding who we are. We've been around for at least 2 million years, depending on how you're going to count, 6 million years for hominids. But we can thrive. Our ancestors were thriving people. We wouldn't be here if they hadn't been thriving, right? So it's not it's part of our heritage is to provide the nest and lead to an enjoyment of life. And one of the best ways to heal, that I was a music teacher, so is to play folk song games. That's what I did with my undergraduate classes. And, because it takes you in the moment, you're in your body, you have to, hold hands and touch and look people in the eye. And it's like you're here now, grows the right hemisphere, because it grows when you're in the moment with some artistic or whole body experience. We can heal ourselves. So the message that you have, Stephanie, is just marvelous. And I think we all need to realize our power. We are empowered now by you. Thank you so much.
Music is in the Cultural Library of Regenerative Health Resources. I do have a little film. It's only about 10 minutes on regenerative health model. I'll make that available on the Ubiquity platform, but music is in the center of that film. So I want us to have an opportunity to experience the regenerative resources of the Tara approach, and also to integrate the burgeoning wisdom that's spilling over from our time together, so rich. And I'm going to just orient you to either in standing or seated, rooting your feet, the soles of your feet, and orient towards an area right underneath the mound of the big toe on the sole of your feet. And out of that, sacred site, see a root returning to our tree metaphor, a root growing from the soles of your feet, unraveling into the womb of the earth, the umbilical cord that links you with the placenta of our mother. Soften your joints and bring your fingertips right under the clavicle, the bony protuberance on the medial aspect of the clavicle, almost to midline, bilaterally, with the palms of your hands resting on your upper ribs, and any fingertips or one fingertip, whatever happens naturally, where your fingertips fall on the clavicle. That is a sacred site that my teacher, Mary Eno Burmeister, to whom I am so profoundly grateful, told me this site is called contentment. But she told me why it's called contentment. Its number on the map of the body she imparted to me is 22. And there are 22 cranial bones. And Mary said, when you touch this sacred site, and you can feel it, that's why my words are slowing down now as I am sensing into it, this sensory acuity is at the center of regeneration. It's the language of regeneration. As we just make contact, connection, no pressure, no technology involved here, no movement, just being with this area under the clavicle. And it's a wide range, no worry about being precise. Mary also said, we don't have to be precise. The body is precise. And what's happening is that the 22 cranial bones in your gorgeous cranium are realigning. Yeah, and you can feel it. And that realignment allows you to absorb the wisdom of the mother trees, leading us to regenerative health in a climate changing world without effort. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Jim Garrison. I hope you'll point people to the Hive and the Global Regeneration Corps as we come to closure. And I will join the after chat group, and I'll be happy to meet anyone there who wants to talk further.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Anita, Spring, Darsha. This has been a wonderful session, and it calls to mind to me the meaning of the word healing and to heal. It comes from the Proto-Germanic word meaning to make whole. And what you four mother trees did today was to make us feel whole. And it was so strange or wonderful, Stephanie, when I closed my eyes and I put my fingers on my clavicle, before you talked about the 22 bones in your cranium, I was feeling it in my head. And I was wondering why, because I thought I was going to feel it in my shoulders or in my torso. And so that was a powerful affirmation of the truth of what you're saying, that we're all interconnected. And the purpose of healing is to make us feel whole. And I just want to thank everyone for your presentations today. It was, and this is the reason why I love Humanity Rising. Every day without fail, over nearly 400 sessions, I'm inspired in some way. I learned something that I didn't know before, and I feel afresh the goodness in the world. And Stephanie, the enthusiasm with which you introduced everybody, and the enthusiasm with which you speak to the power of regenerative healing is such an inspiration to all of us. So I just want to thank you. And we are out of time, so we'll bring this to a close. We welcome everyone to the after session. We also welcome everyone to the Global Regeneration Corps, where we're busy creating a hive of different organizations and individuals around the world to engage in both inner and outer regeneration, because regeneration is just what's up for the human race on planet Earth as we take up the challenge of Code Red. So that'll bring us to a close today. Thank you all so much. And we'll see everyone here again tomorrow with Rob DeLay. Rob, as it turns out, has a case of COVID, but I've been in touch with him all morning, and he says, COVID or not, he's going to be on Humanity Rising tomorrow. He sends his warmest regards, Stephanie. I think he's watching this session today. And he'll be here talking about a Marshall Plan that he and others are trying to put together to save our rainforests, which are the lungs. And as Antonio Nobre, the great climate scientist from Brazil, said last week, the Amazonia and the rainforests are not only the lungs, they're the heart of the planet. So that'll be tomorrow on Humanity Rising. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.